Sometimes we take other people buying our art as validation for it's worth it to make it in the first place. And that's not true. There is something to making art regardless of who validates it by purchasing it in the marketplace. It's also kind of dangerous to say, well, if no one buys it, I might as well not make it, because that's kind of what I hear in a statement like that, right? Hello and welcome to my humble abode. We have stories to share today. So I was at an art market a couple weeks ago and something happened that absolutely broke my heart and I needed to talk about it. Walking around these booths, and I went up to this one girl's booth. It was some really impactful stuff, and so I started chatting with her about her work, but she said, people don't want to buy art, they just want to look at it. What a powerful statement, right? Clearly I would not be in the career I am now if I believed that. It kind of reminded me of myself as a younger artist, although I don't think I ever really got that far down because I've just been so delulu my whole life. I've just been like, I'm not gonna sit here and tell myself I can't do the things that I want to do in my life, especially when there's so much evidence to the contrary. I see other people making it as a successful artist. Who's to say that can't also be me? You know, that's always been my mindset. There's an interesting song by Mitski even that says the same thing, and I'll leave what I'm chasing for the other girls to pursue. If you're telling yourself before you've hardly started that you can't do something that you clearly have the desire to do. And so I just wanted to give you a couple tips today so that if you are a discouraged artist, you can also see the light at the end of the tunnel. I get it, I really do. Putting yourself out there as an artist is probably one of the most difficult things that you can ever do. It can feel a lot like you're opening yourself up to face rejection sometimes when you show your artwork at events, even online sometimes when the algorithm is not quite in your favor. So if these kinds of thoughts happen, like people don't want to buy art, I totally get it. It can feel that way sometimes. Something that I always like to remember when I start to feel self-doubt, because that's ultimately what this is, right? It's you asking yourself, what if I can't do this? And that's a fair question to ask. Ultimately, you kind of have to ask yourself what you want out of life, regardless of who will validate it for you. What do you want to be doing? The trick to being an artist is that it's a lot of work up front for little to no payoff until way down the line. What I want you to be mindful of, a little cautious of, is talking yourself out of doing something before you've began. Sometimes we take other people buying our art as validation for it's worth it to make it in the first place, and that's not true. There is something to making art regardless of who validates it by purchasing it in the marketplace. It's also kind of dangerous to say, well, if no one buys it, I might as well not make it, because that's kind of what I hear in a statement like that, right? I don't know, you might hear something else. My brain works in weird ways. There's a book called Soundtracks by John Acuff that totally changed my life. I remember listening to it as an audiobook every day on my way to work at my job in property management. Essentially, the book had this theory that your thoughts can be chosen, much like you choose the music you listen to. But your thoughts are more dangerous than the music you listen to because they repeat constantly. There's no off button, right? And so it's a constant practice, a constant exercise in making sure that you speak to yourself with kindness and in a way that you are not sabotaging your life with allowing unhelpful thoughts to sit in the driver's seat of your car. When someone says something like, people don't want to buy art, they just want to look at it, I hear someone who has given up on art as a career, and that makes me a little bit sad. I remember giving up on it myself, so that's where this sadness comes from for me, is the empathy I have for my younger self. Because I've been selling my art since 2016, but only took it like super seriously as a business about a year ago, and it has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. It might not always be super lucrative. You might need other part-time jobs to supplement for a period of time, but I can't imagine myself doing anything else. And you have to be really careful when you let thoughts come into your head that can cause you to give up on yourself. You don't want to do that to yourself. You have to ask yourself what you want out of life, and if being an artist is something that's always on your mind, you have to let that in. You have to let that be a part of you, because otherwise you will always be thinking, what if I was an artist? What if I did something different with my life? And for me, it's almost out of spite that I've started taking this seriously, and it's solely to shut that voice up in my head that's like, hey, what if I was an artist? Hey, what if I was an artist? Hey, what if? It's like, okay, I'm listening now, I'm doing it. I've heard it said once that you having the desire is proof that it's already yours. You just have to claim it. Sometimes these kinds of statements can feel so far away. Like when I spoke to this girl at this art market, it felt like, I don't know if she heard me or believed me, because it really did start this in-depth discussion. I ended up like DMing her some videos from YouTube. I'll link them below. One of the videos that I felt like was most helpful to the conversation was a video talking about how to attract wealthy buyers for your art, and it included a lot of facts and statistics about the fact that the art market is a market that has people in it that want to buy your art. And so first and foremost, I just kind of wanted to address that underlying worthiness wound that you might have if you have had this thought before of no one wants to buy art, because it's factually, oh, I forgot, I was talking about soundtracks. In the book Soundtracks, it talks about good soundtracks and broken soundtracks. You can identify when you listen to songs that you like that they're good songs, right? You can identify when you listen to songs that you don't like, that you never want to play them again. And so this book talks about the theory of identifying helpful and unhelpful thoughts and turning them down like a little volume knob, and or turning up the ones that you do like. Here are just a couple ways to determine if those thoughts are helpful for you. Let me look it up. It essentially says there are 3 things you can ask yourself when determining if you have a broken soundtrack. In other words, thoughts that are not helpful to the way that you want to live your life. The first one is it true? Is this thought I'm having true? When I say something like people don't want to buy art, they just want to look at it, is it true factually? And the answer to this is an obvious no, it's not true, because people buy art every day. People do make this their career. The only question is, do you want to join them or not? Understand it'll be a lot of work. It'll take a lot of time. I think if anyone thinks about, do I want that? The obvious answer that comes to them is yes, I do want it. But underneath that you do want, what does it take to get there? And do you want to do that enough? In this case, in order to become an artist that makes money off of their art, you have to be incredibly, incredibly persistent, and you have to spend a lot of time. There's so much that goes into building this, because it really is entrepreneurship. It's not just painting silly little things in the corner of your apartment and selling them. I mean, maybe that would be nice if it happened that way, but I don't think that it does. I don't think anyone does that. You have to spend a lot of times, a lot of years branding yourself, marketing yourself, and putting yourself out there for rejection over and over and over until you finally get there. And this process doesn't have to be painful. You don't have to let those failures be like falling down on the ground for you. It can just be like little bumps. It can be like you're walking through a hallway and you accidentally hit your shoulder on the edge. It's like, oops, sorry. Little walking over speed bumps. It doesn't have to feel like a massive personal moral failing whenever something doesn't go quite right, because believe me, things won't go right. That's just how things work. Really, the key to staying persistent is accepting whatever comes and never wavering in your end goal. Be flexible with your means, but inflexible with your goal. Know that no one can tell you that you can't make it, because I know that you can. And I know it's hard to believe that yourself sometimes, but what I find is helpful whenever I don't have it in me to believe in myself at the moment, I always try to find other people who are believing in themselves and trying to absorb that from them. When I took a break from painting for a few years, I remember talking to my therapist and saying, I wish I had time to paint, but I just don't have time or energy, and I just cannot get myself to do it. And she said, if you can't paint, at least consume art. So go out to an art opening, go onto YouTube, watch art vlogs, read about art, watch artsy movies, maybe even make a few videos, because I love me some artsy movies. But the key here is You don't always have to be strong, and it's okay to have low periods. I have definitely had a lot of moments where I question if this is it for me because it's just so hard sometimes. But I've always trusted and known that if I'm not doing this, I will be thinking, what if? And I cannot live with that what if. I will spend my whole life just floating along saying, here I am. Another one of my favorite quotes is, in order to surf, you have to get in the water. You won't always be able to take every single wave that comes your way, but the people who catch the waves are in the water. Even if you're standing in the ocean and the waves are just kind of crashing around you and you can't seem to get up on your board, it's enough that you're just in the water. It's enough that you're just out here trying. In the case of this, I think of her like a friend. I hope she thinks of me as a friend. In the case of my friend here, she was in the water. She was at an art market. That's enough. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I really hope you do give yourself credit for the things that you take the courage to do. Even steps that feel so small or insignificant to the outside, I know how big those steps feel, how much energy it takes, not only just to like get up and get out there, but to prepare yourself to be vulnerable in front of other people with your art. I totally get that. And so I just wanted to get on camera and kind of talk about that because it's such a loaded question and it gave me so many thoughts and feelings. It really does break my heart a little bit if anyone does feel this way and allows that thought to end what could be their art career, because while it is difficult, you don't give up on something meaningful just because it's difficult. You spend your entire life building up to that meaning, to be who you are meant to be, because you are the prize at the end of the tunnel. You being the version of yourself that you become while you are working on this, that is the real prize. It's not the recognition, it's not the likes, it's not the follows. It's none of that. It's the you that you become by doing what you're meant to do. It's funny, I actually had a different video, like an instructional, educational video that I made right before this one, and while I was editing, I stopped and filmed this and put it in there instead. So I'm gonna have part 2 to this video for once you're past the emotional like hiccup of the worth, like asking yourself, is it worth it? Here are some actionable steps that you can take in order to kind of push yourself a little bit farther along in the art journey. If you like this video, definitely hit the like button and subscribe. I know I just said those things don't matter, but they matter to the algorithm and helps me know I'm on the right track. So as always, spending any amount of time here on this channel with me is a gift. I really, really do consider it a gift. You guys are my friends, so I mean, it really is a gift. And for that, this humble artist says thank you. My green tea over here.